Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Insert the music here. Insert the music here. Good evening, tribe, and welcome to episode 86 of Merriwether's World. I am your host, Dr. Mark Merriwether Vorderbruggen, broadcasting to you live from a virtual representation of Big Bend Ranch State Park, and with a little bit of light issues there. Okay, there, I think I was able to fix it. Whoop, nope, the glowing blue fingers of interest have returned. I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, wow, group already here. Thought I'd try things a little differently. So tonight, interesting thing, I've been trying to connect you with the universe and earth and things and helping you understand how everything works and where we came from. Because to have any say really in where we are going, or at least where you are going, you need to understand where you came from, what came before you. And so that kind of set the momentum of the big juggernaut of the human race. Think of us as a stone rolling down a hill, and knowing where that rock came from kind of gives you an idea where this rock may be going. And so that is my goal with this show. All right. Again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Mark Merriwether Vorderbruggen, slight klutzy, and author of Idiot's Guide Foraging, creator of the Foraging Texas website with over 225, currently 225 plants and all sorts of great detail, Medicine Man Blanco, things like that. Lots of good information over there. Oops. There we go. I need my mouse. I miss. All right. Creator of, or co-creator, not just me. This was a joint project. And like I said, the colors are kind of washed out by my camera. It's actually much more vivid than this in real life. But the Wazoo Survival bandana made with Dr. Nicole Appelian, the two-time contestant on the History Channel's Alone, and of course, Wazoo Survival. So as I've changed things up, I'll be throwing the sponsors in throughout the show rather than hitting you all with them right away. But I do want to bring up classes because basically, well, I got a class this Saturday in Dallas, but it is all filled up. And hey, you know what? I can do this. I can show you. Whoops, that's Foraging Ethics. Upcoming classes. So next one after that. So on December 19th, I will be in the Austin area doing a 4-hour plant walkabout at the Spoke Hollow Outfitters. They are just west of Austin. So you Austonians, you want to see what you can eat in the current new apocalypse, Apocalypse 2.0 maybe. Check it out. And then January, things calm down some. And then February, things start up again. And I will be adding more classes there. So if you want to join me in the wild in person, go to the upcoming classes page on Foraging Texas. All right. And since Uncommon Bees is here, I can do it. Check it out. I got it set up automatically. We'll throw them the first sponsor for tonight, Uncommon Bees, and all sorts of bee type stuff. They have tons of infused honeys. Some I worked on with them. Most they came up with on their own, but all sorts of really wonderful, wonderful things. Oh, Uncommon Bees, I have an idea for you. I need to send you an idea for a thing. I think you'll like it. So yeah, definitely check out Uncommon Bees. Not only do they have the different herbal infused honeys, they also have CBD infused products. both honeys and beeswaxes for salves and all sorts of wonderful things like that. So definitely check it out. And of course, if you use the Forking Weeds, this special Foraging Texas greeting, secret, you get a 10% discount all the time. But between now and 9:30 tonight, you get a 25% discount. Whoa, awesome. Okay, jumping back. So without further ado, I need a sip of my, okay, I will warn you. Eggnog showed up in the stores. Whoa, magic mug. And so I have eggnog with potentially way too much rum in it, but we will see. Okay. Food. Let's talk about your food and where it comes from. And those of you who think this is going to be a rant against like factory farming or stuff, no, I'm not going that route. I'm going back to the beginning and talking about the food we eat now and where it came from. So we'll pick a couple of different examples of different plants, different veggies, different fruits, and what was done to get them to our current state. And you might be surprised at how recently some of these changes were done. So let's start actually with a little bit. I don't know if you know. I dabble with different NASA scientists, and one of the things they use a lot in their spacecraft garden up on the International Space Station and doing a lot of tests is let me just throw this up here. So they have two plants that they are awfully fond of. They use some others. They have lettuce, they have zinnias, but what they really like playing around with are members of the brassica family. So the mustards. So mustard greens. They have a Japanese Mizuna mustard green, and then this little guy, and I'm never going to pronounce that right, Arabidopsis thaliana. If you know hoary bittercress, little tiny bittercress that's appearing right now in the flower beds and all that, it's a relative of that. So it's like they have a kind of a nice leafy, radishy type mustard and a little tiny mustard. And they're fiddling around with that, trying to make astronaut food because mustards are very nutritious. And more importantly, it's really easy to manipulate and breed different characteristics into mustards through selective breeding. Nowadays, they're starting to mess around, of course, with genetic modifications, slicing and dicing the genetic code and messing around with things and turning things off and turning things on and all this sort of thing. So NASA, to have effective plants for the astronauts, they have to rely on changing the plants, the food plants we have now. And at the end of the show, we'll go into more about what changes they're making. But let's now leap way back to the beginning of time when people were foraging wild greens and wild foods and fruits and so forth. And eventually they started realizing, hey, these little hard bits in here, these seeds, they lead to new plants. That's interesting. Okay, so we got, collect the seeds and collect the plants. And then somewhere along the line, someone had this idea that, wow, this particular version, we'll go with the mustard, and you'll understand why in a bit. Hey, this mustard plant, I like this particular mustard plant. It tastes really good. And, it's not quite as sharp and bitter or potent. It's actually kind of mellow. So maybe if I collect these seeds from this particular plant and plant them, the new plants that come up will taste more like this one rather than the kind of harsh, potent, sinus bursting, of the original mustard. So they started doing that. They said, hey, wow, this works. By collecting the seeds from plants that had features they liked, they realized that they could start forcing the plant in a new direction. So what sort of things were they looking for? Well, if you have eaten a lot of wild foods, you may notice one thing that's very common is a lot of them are bitter. A lot of the plants are bitter. And for the most part, humans don't really care for bitterness. So one of the first things people started doing was trying to save the seeds from individual plants that were less bitter than other plants of the same type. So they started breeding out the bitterness. So that was good. So it made it more palatable. Other features. A lot of wild greens, when you pick them, they immediately wilt and start to go bad pretty quickly. You can't store them. So the concept of, well, can we breed the ability to store the plants in, will that work? And it turns out they did. They were able to, again, find the individual plants that seem to hold their shape, hold their texture, hold whatever a little bit longer, and through selective breeding, came up with varieties that they could harvest and store, and they wouldn't turn immediately into nasty goo. Cool. So what else can we do? Well, with the wild plants, one of their survival techniques is they have a tendency to ripen across a fairly wide window of time, which is good for the plants and good for nature because it allows more time and more chances of pollinators to come and spread the things and so forth. So it works in the plant's favor to ripen, the individual seed-bearing parts to ripen over the course of a month, 2 months, a long period of time. Well, if you're trying to collect the seeds, or trying to collect the fruit, this is annoying. That's one of the problems with muscadine grapes. The wild grapes is they ripen they don't grow in clusters. The muscadine grapes grow individual grapes, and they ripen over the course of almost 6 weeks. So if you want a bunch of ripe muscadine grapes, you have to wait around, or you have to go travel to a bunch of different vines. It's a pain in the ass. And so humans thought, it'd be really convenient if, say, all these grapes that we want to turn into this magic liquor that makes us feel really good. Pardon me while I take a drink. Can we, just take one plant and focus on it and just, kind of zero in on a nice, maybe a week, maybe a 2-week period to harvest the food. So we were looking for ways to make the food better for us and either better tasting, better looking, better storage, easier to harvest, easier to digest, things like that. And that will come into play with NASA. So altering the physical characteristics of the plants by selecting the seeds, and from a plant that said, "Ooh, this one, I like this one. Let's keep this one and see if we can reproduce this one." So cool. Okay, so back to the brassica, the wild mustard. So the most famous of the brassicas is Brassica oleracea. We'll do this. It's the wild mustard plant. So when you hear about the wild mustard seeds and the mustard plants and like the Bible and everything else, it's most likely this particular variety, this particular species. It would grow in the hillier regions around the Mediterranean. And it was fairly tasty and people liked it. But, they thought, there are things about it I don't like. So one of the first things they started doing, and you know what? I can do this. Hold on a second. Let me remove that. Share screen. application window. Okay, whoop, wrong one. Whoop, did it work? Okay, so basically this is what it looks like. If you are familiar with bastard cabbage, the wild invasive mustard that's spread all through Texas, it's out right now, basically through the hill in central Texas. But it's just kind of a weedy, coarse, rough plant. Doesn't, well, to me it looks edible, but it's your basic wild weed. And people started looking at that and going, I like this plant. It tastes good. I feel good when I eat it. It seems to help me in ways. But its leaves are stringy and short and tough. But this one right here, this one has bigger leaves. So let's take the seeds from that one. So they started doing that. And the end result, about 300 BC. So, oops, let me just go back here. So 300 BC is when kale, the superfood kale chips and kale smoothies and all that. So kale was bred from this wild mustard about 300 BC is when both kale and collard greens came into being. To put things in perspective, the pyramids of Egypt, they were built around 2550 BC. So the pyramids had already been around longer by the time kale had been created, bred, than kale has been in existence between then and now, basically. So, but that was, as far as scientists can tell, that was one of the early mustards. There were other plants that go back to other periods and other times. Corn, absolutely amazing. I want to do a whole show on corn. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about corn tonight. But by selecting leaf size and leaf texture from the plants, they took the Brassica oleracea and converted it into the kale and the collard green variety. Still the same species, just with bigger leaves, so it became a variety. So the next up, then things were kind of there for a while. So you had the wild mustards, and you had the kale and the collard greens, absolutely fantastic, sauteed in some bacon and some bacon grease. But people thought, we like these leaves, but let's play around some more. Let's get bigger leaves, but have them closer together on the stem, because it's kind of a lanky plant. And for each stem, we get a fair number of leaves, but we want more leaves. So we want to breed this to make more leaves along the stem, and let's make the leaves bigger. So in 1200 AD, so not that long ago, really, 800 years ago, they finally bred cabbages. So what we think of as a cabbage only appeared in the 1200 AD. It hasn't been around for all that long, but it was through selective breeding of the wild mustard and the kale and the collard greens. They managed to make this ball of tightly packed leaves, delicious, nutritious, makes awesome sauerkraut. But they bred cabbages. Cabbages have only been around, like this, and cabbages have only been around for 1200 AD. But while you're making cabbages, some others were fiddling around with it, and they came up with the Brussels sprouts. So instead of a big head, they wanted densely packed clusters of leaves up the stem and came up with Brussels sprouts. But we forgive them for that. Now, Brussels sprouts are really good. I love me roasted Brussels sprouts. Okay, so awesome. We started with this wild mustard, and now we got kale, we got collard greens, we got cabbage. We got Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts are good. What can we do next? Well, the stem. the stem of broccoli and wild mustard, yeah, that's pretty good actually. Can we make the stem bigger? Can we breed it so the stem gets bigger? Yes, yes, we can, because we are humans and nothing is beyond us. And so by the 1400s, 1400 AD, is when kohlrabi appeared. Now, one thing I found is down here in the South in Texas, kohlrabi doesn't seem to have the huge following it does up north. I got to tell you, one of my favorite summertime plants was the kohlrabi. Think it kind of looks like a green beet that grows above ground with green leaves, and it's a mustard. The leaves are edible. The stem, though, the stem, grows into a bulb. Absolutely delicious. So, people decided, hey, let's breed these big stems. Well, also in the 1400s, that's when there's a lot of Silk Road stuff going on. And so these different mustard plants ended up in other parts of the world, and they started going, what can we do with these? So by 1500 AD, that's when broccoli first appeared. So the broccoli that everyone eats, the beef and broccoli Chinese dish and all the other broccolis, all the broccoli, that was the 1500s. That's how long, was that 500 years? Really, broccoli, occurred after Columbus discovered America and all this sort of thing started happening. So, but they were breeding it over in China. They came up with a Chinese version of broccoli. And what broccoli is just dense clusters of flower buds that take a long time to open. So in that case, they bred it so you get a lot of flowers, so you get a lot of flower buds, and it takes the flower buds a long time to open, so you get this big, dense, green, bumpy mass of flower buds. That tastes really good. Through carefully taking the seeds from the plants that were looking like they might give they wanted and planting them and growing them over and over. Selective breeding. And when you think about it, it didn't take very long. A few hundred years, but longer than the life of a person. So this had to be, mothers passing it on to daughters, fathers passing it on to sons, this goal. It's like the cathedrals in Europe, that took 150 years to build this cathedral. It was started knowing they will never see the end, but the goal was passed on, and it was kept, building and building and building. Same with these vegetables that, a person decided, I want this feature, and I may not get it, but maybe my offspring will. So broccoli and the Chinese broccoli. And once you have broccoli, then it became a matter of some more selective breeding to create cauliflower. And, basically white broccoli, but through selective breeding, they were able to make the cauliflower. I guess the most recent alteration to the Brassica oleracea, however you say it, the wild mustard, was really, it was patented in 1973. And that would be the canola. If you're familiar with canola oil, another name for it is rapeseed oil, which is a oil pressed from the seeds of actually several different brassicas. Only one of them probably being bred from the Brassica oleracea. But yeah, the canola oil we have in our kitchen, that is just the latest in a long line of plants that were bred for a specific feature. In this case, mustard seeds that were really high in oil content. And like I said, that was 1973 when they patented it. And at that point, I don't think they had much in the way of cutting and slicing the genes. It was still people looking at the plants and going, okay, I'm going to take the seeds from this one, and I'm going to take the seeds from this one. I think if I cross-pollinate those, they might give me something. So to me, it's fascinating that humans have devoted so much time and energy, and it's understandable why, once you think about it, to make it more palatable, to make it easier to harvest, to make it, store longer so we can have it longer. This is a big thing now with a lot of plants because from being harvested, grapes in Chile shipped up to New York, they're breeding the grapes so they can just sit in these, warehouses and stuff for a while. There's still a lot of breeding of plants going on, selective breeding, not just, genetic manipulation, but still, people out in the fields crossing this with that to come up with more or to alter the food so it fits a commercial need better. Okay, I'm going to let you chew on that for a second. Let's bring up some more. Give me a second. Stop screen. Let's see. Remove. Stop screen. Okay, and share screen. Oops, did that work? Come on. Uh-oh. I hope I didn't crash my computer. Why are you? Okay, so I mentioned the Wazoo Survival Bandana. And if you use the actually, no, there's not a coupon code. But I got to yell out to Wazoo because they are the ones that pay for the StreamYard account that allows me to do these shows. So if you like these shows, support Wazoo because Wazoo pays the internet StreamYard account fees. So plus of all the different sponsors, they're the only ones that actually give me money. So I actually get a little bit of coinage when you buy the foraging bandana, or if you go and buy the foraging bandana and add anything else from their amazing selection of stuff. And they got all these sales going on right now. Ooh, wow. Okay, buy any 2 bandanas and get 15% off. Christmas gifts. So shout out to Wazoo Survival for all their support for me. And then let me also do Campcraft Outdoors because I am getting lots of use from their stuff. Like I said, if I'm going out in the woods, I don't want to be carrying a bunch of plastic and nylon and polyester. I like canvas. I like leather. I like wool. These guys supply the canvas, the leather, the wool, the type of gear that I like. So I got my Campcraft Outdoors backpack, waxed canvas, so it sheds water like a duck, made here in the US, tough, lightweight, and I just feel good out in the wild with it. Okay, so check them out, and if you use the Take 10 coupon code, you get 10% discount from them. So good stuff. All right. How are we doing? Any questions so far? In the past, when it's been really silent and there weren't any questions, I always panicked because it's like, oh my God, everyone's just like doing something else, playing on their phones or stuff. But people claim that they're actually interested in what's going on. So let's continue on now. And let's bring this back up here. That work. Okay, let's talk about citrus. The lemons, the limes, the grapefruit, the oranges, all the varieties of oranges, the nectarines, the tangerines, the pomelos, the whatever, all this, that, and the other thing. Oh, okay, Jennifer. So is bastard cabbage the original mustard? No, it's not the original mustard. It's a close variety. There are a lot of them out there. As far as Texas is concerned, it is probably the one that looks and is most similar to the wild Mediterranean mustard. Okay, so citrus fruits. Basically, all the different citruses come from 3 different fruit. As you can see, we have the citrons, We have the pomelos, and we have what are called true mandarins. And by crossing different things, you get all the others. So, like lemons and Meyer lemons and bergamot oranges and clementines and grapefruit. So all the citrus that we have available now is through hybridization. People going, that tree is interesting. That tree is interesting. What happens if I mash their flowers together? Ooh, interesting fruit. So that's the thing. If you have a lot of different citrus trees on your property, it's something you have to look out for, because you're going to start getting weird hybridizations. But it might be worth every so often, if you have the space, planting the seeds and seeing what you get. But let me put the link up here. So this link came from Wikipedia. So I'll put it up here. But you can go and look at, what it takes to make different fruit, or in this case, the different citrus, bitter oranges, and all this sort of thing. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Dibble69, good comment. Fruit salad tree. That's one of the things that's nice about these, is you can graft a bunch of different citrus onto the same rootstock, because they are close enough that it'll work. So you can have a tree that has, lemons and oranges and limes and all this stuff on there. If you're patient and careful, the tree is okay with that. It's close enough. It's we'll give it a shot. So I don't know if there must still be competition. I know a few times coming across competitions of who could get the most variety of citrus on one tree through grafting. So my brother-in-law does a tremendous amount of grafting of citrus trees. He has a whole citrus orchard, and he actually has some of the original citrus trees, the true mandarins, the citrons, and the pomelos, and he's tried to recreate his own orange and his own lemon, which has been interesting. So something to think about. Oh, yeah. So stone fruit, peaches, plums, pears, not pears, peaches, plums, nectarines, cherries, same sort of thing going on there. They, came from a few common ancestors, and through, crossbreeding and selective breeding, you get all these different stone fruit. Apples. I think I read somewhere there's like 17,000 varieties of apples. Apples are another thing. The original apple started out, I want to say, in the Russian steppes, in the China-Europe border there. And it was, your basic apple, but it mutated easily and hybridized easily. And if you separate it and grew some and mixed them back, end result, like I said, I want to say 1,700 different types of apples. Apples actually don't work very well self-fertile. They like other varieties of apples around to make truly fertile seeds. You will get fruit, but you will, a lot of times the fruit from a self-pollinated apple tree won't do well. They need other types of apples to get that hybrid vigor, to kind of knock out some of the weak genes. Okay. I can't think of any questions I have about this. A little puckered up. Dwarf varieties seem to do better containerized here in the hill country. Yeah, so the dwarf varieties, let's talk about that quick. That is where they take a rootstock of some sort of tree that was bred to be small, a apple tree or a citrus tree that was specifically bred to be small. So now you have a small root system, and then they graft onto that what would normally grow into a full-size fruit tree, but it is limited by the roots. So along with selective breeding, you also have grafting in the case of citrus and a number of other fruits. So they kind of, I don't want to say cripple the the tree, but they limit how big the tree can get because they've bred the roots to only get to a certain size, and then they don't get any bigger. And so they can't support bigger growth. So the tree just kind of, it stunts the tree's growth there. Ooh, now here's a great question or great thought. John says, I'm just thinking about the fact that it's probably just one guy, gal in the tribe that's doing all the work. Thinking about blending and grafting plants, and everyone else is riding on their coattails. Isn't that how history works? Yeah, Madame Curie, case in point. Absolutely true. It was probably, one or two of the tribe members that had this vision and realizing maybe, what happens if I do this? And so it was those geniuses, those out-of-the-box thinkers, those that weren't limited by what is, but thought what can be. And in a lot of ways, that sums up, every aspect of advancement by humans. Someone outside, if not everyone in the tribe was doing this. It was just a few, gifted ones that wanted something different and thought, what the hell, let's try it, and had some results and continued on from there. Oh, here's a good question. And you give information on nightshade plants and why they cause health problems for so many. I'm thinking here. So nightshades, all right. So those of you who have watched this show for a long time know what I mean when I say I'm going to throw out some swag. Swag, SWAG, scientific wild ass guess. So a lot of times when I am approached with a question and I don't know the answer to it off the top of my head, I kind of analyze, what do I know? And from that, can I extrapolate something that sounds logical in regards to what I know? So nightshades. There's a big variety of nightshades out there. And you are right. Potatoes are a nightshade. Tomatoes, peppers are nightshades, but belladonna, Jerusalem artichoke, and those things, sorry, not Jerusalem artichoke, Jerusalem cherry, are poisonous nightshades. And I think really what it is, well, okay, let's talk about a potato for a second. So the potato, I don't know when, let's see, the Andes. The potato came from the South America in the Andes, and there's quite a variety of different potato plants that produce different types of tubers. But one in particular was found to grow really well in Ireland and Russia, and so that became the potato we know of. When a potato tuber is growing, if the skin of the tuber is exposed to sunlight, you may have noticed it turns green in color. That green color is a poison called solanine that appears when the roots of different nightshades or different parts of the nightshade plant are exposed to sunlight. So the leaves of the potato plant, tomatoes, nightshades, pretty much all of them have solanine. And then some of the other plants in that family have developed other poisons, probably over time because of environmental pressures affecting them. Plants are constantly, well, everything is constantly creating mutated offspring. Just, it's one of those things in nature. And like when, if you were here last week, we were talking with Professor Brandon Laurie, how just a millimeter different in the beak of birds, depending on the season's weather, could determine if that variety of bird lived or died. And so little subtle changes like this. Okay, so through different environmental pressures of whatever site, probably herbivores, some nightshades that over time developed more and more of these bad compounds, it was just their offspring survived the pressure of the herbivores on them. And then humans came on the scene and started going, well, you know what? This plant makes me vomit and gives me diarrhea. But at the same time, there's something about it. And, it grows really well here. Maybe I can figure out a way of eating it, or maybe I can breed things. So I think it was going back to your question, Sherry, and dog in the woods sniffing every tree. The different poisons developed via mutations of the plants that help the plant succeed better against the environmental issues that were attacking the plant. But then humans did figure out ways of breeding that out in a lot of cases. So hopefully that helps them. What time is it? Ooh, 8:40 already. Rum. Okay, so another really interesting fruit that didn't exist, 1,000 years ago was the watermelon. If you look, again, I think it was the 1600s. There are some early paintings, some of the Dutch masters' realistic paintings, and on the tables and the still lives, there are fruit that have been identified most likely to be the precursor of watermelons. So the early watermelons that people were eating in the 1600s were, about the size of soccer balls, were mainly the white flesh of the rind, and just at the core, they had little curls of the red flesh with the seeds in it. And they were good, but if you've ever nibbled on the white part of the watermelon rind, the pink part is better. So again, selective breeding came in, and they're, ooh, this one had a lot of pink. Let's keep these seeds, plant those, and see what we can do. And over time, we got the watermelons, and we got the seedless watermelons. Where I'm going with all this is really there aren't any common plants left that you're buying in the grocery store that haven't been, domesticated and bred to develop the characteristics they have. They have all been created by mankind. The bananas, if you look at the original bananas, they're filled with these big seeds. If you know the pawpaw is more like a banana, the original banana, than the bananas we eat now. So all our food has been, dabbled upon by humans. Ooh, yes, Constance. Yeah, so the same with the sweet pug dog from the wolf. It's not just plants that we were messing around with. If it can breed, the humans are going to find a way to breed new features and breed for certain features and not for other features. That's why there's a lot of purebred dogs out there that they've been just bred, basically inbred, to develop certain features that someone thought was cool. So that's why then they also, when you start inbreeding, you get lots of health issues, hip dysplasia, sinus issues, like on the pugs. The pugs, their face is smashed, they can't hardly breathe, so they get lots of sinus infections. But yeah, that's what humans do. We look at something and we decide, what can we do? Which grocery produce isn't specially bred for us? Not avocados. I'm guessing avocados. I mean, the Haas avocado, if it has a name, it's probably been bred. So, the potatoes, the onions, all of them, the broccoli, all the fruit, all the starchies, even the herbs. A lot of the herbs were bred. If you go to Arborgate Nursery in Tomball, my favorite nursery, they have a dozen or more different types of mint, because they took the original mints and bred it and changed it and, got the wintergreen and the chocolate peppermint and all these sort of things, and the sages and the oreganos and the thymes and all the different seasonings. Maybe ginkgo trees. Or ginkgo trees are one of the oldest ones that we've been messing around with. Pumpkins were, bred to get big and orange. The carrot. Let me throw this up. What time is it? Okay. Let me stop screen. Share screen. Application window. Oops. Okay. All right. This is a wild carrot. And in particular, let me try something here. What happens if if I zoom in, did that make it bigger? Okay, cool, cool. So your basic wild carrot is tough, woody. The core is white. The skin is kind of, tan here, I guess. Not very appealing, but it had flavor. And so people started breeding with it, not with it, breeding it, and selectively breeding to develop softer, bigger taproots. One of the things, the wild carrots actually have some variety in color, and the orange carrots that we know now, the same species as the wild carrot. What is it? Something Dacus carata, whatever. It was actually bred, I want to say, in Belgium in the Middle Ages. The orange color was selectively bred into it and to honor a queen at the time. So again, just through selective breeding and looking at the seeds and looking at the plants and going, I'm going to keep these seeds, I'm going to get rid of those seeds, I'm going to take these seeds and these seeds, plant them and cross them with each other, and we're going to make an orange carrot. So cool. John, the Braca flower seems to be a recent hybrid. Do you know? Yes. Yep, that's another one where someone's just going, I wonder what happens if. And suddenly now we have this gold Braca flower. I think it's high in carotene too, but through selective breeding. I don't think they did any, slice and dice genetic manipulation. I think it was just, mashing the flowers against other flowers and collecting the seeds. So the seedless watermelons are a hybrid. So you have two types of watermelon that are close, but not perfectly aligned. Think of a horse and a donkey. When you cross a horse and a donkey, you get a mule. The horse and donkey are close enough that they can produce an offspring, but the genetics don't match up enough, and so the mules are sterile. They can't produce the sperm and the eggs. That's what a seedless watermelon is. It's two watermelons that have been bred to be really different, but still close enough where you breed them together, you get this, watermelon without the seeds. So you can't, I'm going to say, there's no such thing as a seedless watermelon seed. It requires careful pollination techniques to create the seedless watermelons. Or in this case, they might be genetically slicing and dicing so that it doesn't produce seeds. But the original seedless watermelons were due to very careful pollination practices. Ooh, eggnog. Okay. 48. Wow, this is going fast. Let me do this. Okay. Let me throw up the last two sponsors quick here. So let me share the screen. Share. Okay. So herbs. I'm a huge fan of herbal medicine. I grow a lot of my own herbs. I forage a lot of my own herbs. But there are still times when either I don't have time to make the stuff or whatever. And so I reach out to tribe member Ricardo Shilly Shelley, aka Derek Bible, and hit him up for different blends. And he has created for me and for others who want to live the lifestyle I live, which I don't recommend, but the Battle Mage tea, Mark's Battle Mage tea, which is a mixture of different adaptogens to help the body fight off and flush away the harmful chemicals that build up when you are under a lot of stress. So herbs, they keep me going. He is my herbalist. He takes care of me when I don't have the time to take care of myself. So check him out. And again, if you use the Forking Weeds magic coupon code. You save 15% on Thursdays from the start of the show until midnight. I'll also want to shout out that they are one of the few suppliers of the Medicine Man products. So if you are out in Cushing, Texas, and you want to see the bottle, you can see it there. But definitely reach out to him. If you don't know what herb you need, but you realize you probably could use some natural help, he will set up he'll send you a form to fill out that talks about your medical. It's like going to the doctor, really. But you fill out your medical history, medications you're on, concerns you're having, what you're looking for, and he will develop a whole health system for you. So there's that. Definitely a great guy. And I haven't seen him. I don't know if he's here or not. If you're here, give a shout there, Ricardo. Okay. And then the other one, and this one plays in for next week's talk in particular. So over in the Vidor, Texas, the Fear and Dread, guns, ammos, transfers, and survival gear. So if you are looking things to get you through this, what do we say, Apocalypse 2.0, I think it's like 2.0, check them out. And I mentioned this ties into next week, because next week is going to be a very special episode of Merriweather's World. Oh, okay, that's you. Sorry. Okay, Derek is watching in from YouTube today. Hi, Derek. Okay. So next week on Merriweather's World, I'll actually be having Houston defense lawyer Mary Kahn on. She's been practicing. Well, I don't think I should probably say how long she's been practicing, because it would imply certain things about her age, which a gentleman never mentions. But she will be on next week to talk about Texas self-defense laws. So what you need to keep in mind if you find yourself in a situation where you have to defend yourself somehow. So next week it will be devoted to that. Okay, did I put up Fear and Dread, and then the coupon code there is Merriweather, 5% off orders for every 100 or more. So cool. Ooh, man, we're going through really fast. Okay, so at the beginning, I teased you with some things about NASA and working with them and what's going on there. And so they've been doing a lot of trying to grow plants up in space. There's a lot of challenges to it. There's a lot of different things going on, like their original automated robot farmers failed miserably. I won't say failed miserably. They learned a lot, but they weren't as effective. And so growing plants in space has been a problem. And surprisingly, and this shocked me, but a lot of plants, when they are grown in microgravity, it turns off or on a lot of different enzymes, a lot of different the chemical processes. For some reason, lack of gravity changes how a plant does all its biochemistry, and generally not in a good way. One thing it does is it pretty much turns off a plant's immune system. Plants have immune systems, just like humans do, just like animals do. They have different chemicals that they produce when they are attacked by some sort of bacteria or plant virus or things. They try and kill it, fungus. But for some reason, the plants, their immune systems shut off in microgravity. So they are extremely susceptible to any of the little organisms that traveled up there with them. So that's a problem. Another thing is lignin and the cellulose. So think of plants high in fiber and their effects on humans. So one of the things that NASA wants, the lignin is to give the plant structure to help support it against gravity. If you don't have gravity, you don't really need all that lignin. And so in this case, NASA's going, the plants don't need it. They don't need much. They need some, they need some basic structure, but they don't need the thick layers of lignin they make to support themselves against gravity. The human digestive system really doesn't do anything with lignin. We need a certain amount of fiber, but that's it. So, long story short, they're trying to breed these plants that they're sending up into space to produce less lignin, increase more of the nutrients, make it more nutrient dense for the astronauts, and find some way of turning back on their immune system. So that's kind of interesting. Then at the same time, another really interesting issue came up. Okay, checking an eye on the time here. Mars. The goal is to someday have, colonies on Mars. If you have a colony like that, you have to be able to grow your own food. Well, one thing that the Earth's governments decided a while ago is basically the Martian Purity Act, that you can't bring any microbes to Mars. You can't, accidentally seed Mars with Earth life forms that could survive there. Really, the only things that could survive there would, be certain types of bacteria, maybe. So they have to sterilize all the seeds, so there is no fungus, no bacteria, no nothing on it, which means then they also don't have the soil bacteria and the soil fungus that breaks down the soil and all that to release the nutrients that the plants need. So they're trying to figure out, how can we alter these plants so they don't need soil bacteria? That's a toughie. That's a real toughie. Because at the same time you're doing that, one way is they produce more acids, more organic acids that slowly chew up the rock. But you don't want to need a plant filled with acid. So there's a lot of thought going in. It's not, if you saw the movie The Martian, and he's mixing, freeze-dried poop in with the soil, and hopefully some of the, the fecal bacteria and so forth take over in there. He's basically in violation of the Earth-Mars Act sort of thing. So, by releasing the bacteria in there, they kind of gloss over that in the book and the movie. But yeah, when you're heading to Mars, you need sterilized plants that have no bacteria on them. It's hard to sterilize a plant so the bacteria is all dead, the fungi is all dead, and the plant is still alive. So, but that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to breed the plants. Okay, so like I said, the purpose of tonight's show was to kind of give you an idea where we came from and what, where this food in your grocery stores came from. Ooh, well, let me continue on this thought. And just like I said, to help you understand, when you're walking through the grocery store, you are not seeing anything that your caveman ancestors would really recognize. I'm sure they'd be willing to eat it, but it's all been so altered from what it was originally that they wouldn't recognize anything. It's possible people from the Middle Ages wouldn't recognize a lot of that. But, the changes happened before you were born, for the most part, unless we got some immortals out there. Hi, immortals. So it just seems like this is what our food has always been, and it hasn't. Good, bad, I'm just showing you this is what was done. This is the momentum that is driving food and where our food is going. So something to think about there. Up to you to decide in your own personal mind if this is good, this is bad. Certainly tasty. It's convenient. Sorry, Betty White says, hey. Yeah, Betty White and Keith Richards. There's two immortal people. And Keanu Reeves. Yeah, the three immortals. Yeah. So how are they going to sterilize people for the colony? And so that's where it gets interesting. So the thought is they know where the humans are. Humans can't sneak off and start reproducing on Mars, and well, they'll change Mars definitely, as opposed to how bacteria. So I don't know if the humans will be sterilized or not. I think the first 40 people or whatever going up, the Elon Musk is sending up there. It's 9 o'clock. I think they might be sterilized. I don't know for sure. Okay, Eric, yeah. I took an archaeology class. The wild corn was not the size of today's corn. Corn is absolutely amazing. It was probably one of the first, it is the genetic engineering that created corn. Absolutely amazing. Oh, talking about bacteria. Yeah, now that's a good one. I think that's going to be one of those things that's just kind of glossed over, Sharon. Well, that's a really good question. Okay, here's tonight's question. Okay, so you can blame Sharon for this one. Love you, Sharon. This is actually Superman. Kryptonian came from Krypton, came to Earth. Earth's yellow sun gives him all these powers. And any Kryptonian, or the dog, the Supergirl, Zod, those guys, anything from Krypton that comes to Earth and gets exposed to the yellow sun develops these superpowers. Most likely, Super Baby had Kryptonian bacteria in his gut. And so the first time he pooped, and the Kryptonian poop was exposed to sunlight as they took it to dispose of it, did the Kryptonian bacteria suddenly become super bacteria? Okay, at this point, I think I've gone long enough. Like I said, hopefully giving you just something to think about, something to help you understand the world. Because the world is maybe very different than what you think it is. It's definitely fascinating. I love it. You guys got a great planet here. I'm really enjoying my stay. But at this point, it is time to shut it down. I'll see a lot of you tomorrow morning at the donut shop at the beginning of the world. Same place here, starting sometime around 7:30, usually starting early because I get lonely. But yeah, have a great evening. See some of you tomorrow. Those I don't see, have a great weekend, and we'll see you in the future. All right, everyone. Have a good one.